And welcome to the latest episode of New Londinium 1910. In following the pattern I've set with From the Rubble, and I will continue with Gripe and Horse, I wanted to take an opportunity to explain literally the method to my madness. Normally in these episodes you see me run around just doing stuff, and that's typical of a Let's Play, or Let's Build as I prefer to call them. But unlike most other people, I'll talk about, the things I'm doing within the context of a plan. But the question always is, what is this plan that you're talking about? Where is this documented or whatever? And quite frankly, the vast majority of people, the vast majority of normal people do not go out and plan their Minecraft builds. I'm not the only one, but you could probably fit all of us on a school bus. But as I showed in From the Rubble, there's definitely something that I want to achieve. And in the case of New Londinium, this is probably the biggest of them all. And it was the one that originally got me started. So with that said, I'd like to talk about the plan. Now, in this case, as I mentioned in From the Rubble, I use Excel as a big piece of virtual graph paper. And in this particular case, the New Londinium plan, it was the first one I came up with. And then at some point along the way, it got lost. I mean, I'd say deleted, and that could certainly be the case, but there was no record of it having existed. I keep these things out on OneDrive, and OneDrive said it hadn't, if it had been deleted, it was deleted more than 6 months ago. So now I made this discovery several months ago, so now it's probably pushing a year. So I had to make it all from scratch. And what I've done here is essentially that. Now, what you're looking at is essentially the side view of the city, New Londinium. Now, you can see this level here. This is ground level, right? And that's going to be the biggest level. And then from there, it goes up like a big wedding cake. And while it goes up, it also goes down like a big inverted wedding cake. Now these, each level is basically like a neighborhood or a region of the city, and it has a name and kind of a flavor to go with it. Now, something to keep in mind that generally the underground stuff is going to be more industrial and lower rent. The stuff above ground is going to be more residential and high rent. The higher you go, the higher the rent goes. The further out to the side where you have open air, the higher the rent goes. So, this area right here, clustered toward the middle and at the bottom, is probably, it's certainly going to be most industrial. That's probably the lowest rent district. And at the very top, clustered on the outside, people with a view, this would be the highest and most desirable real estate. Now, I have kind of gone through and named each of these levels roughly to fit with real places in London, but they're not. It's not a direct or absolute one-to-one matchup. But Westminster, which kind of is a matchup, that would be the top level, and that would be basically the seat of government. So I would have the big cathedral up there, our little parliamentary building, the Prime Minister's abode, blah, 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 blah. The next level down would be Crown Park, which, London, especially central London, they have lots of large, beautiful parks. And since London is kind of spread out horizontally, and I'm spreading things out mostly vertically, I devoted a whole level to the parks. So There'll be some underground parks and some not underground parks on this level, right? You can see some's open to the air, some will be underneath Westminster. Then we go to Mayfair, which is the wealthiest residential district. And then below that is Knightsbridge, which is the wealthiest commercial district. Then we can get down to Kensington, right? So Kensington is more of a middle class, mixed use level. And then Spitalfields here, which is going to be not quite as middle class residential, but your entertainment district, right? Then the Upper Grottoes is the waterfront, because this is going to be at sea level. This is where we'll have our docks. It's interesting too. I plan to have, because, and I'll show you in a minute, the footprint of the city extends out into the ocean a little bit. We will have docks, and then streets will have, there'll frequently be canals that with bridges and stuff. So if you've ever played World of Warcraft, and if you remember, Stormwind kind of has these streets with canals, something along those lines. Then the Lower Grottoes, which is kind of like, well, for lack of a better term, the red light district, but we don't really have a red light district, but, you know, pubs, taverns, this is the type of place you should probably not go after, well, I'd say after dark, but since it's underground, it's always dark, so just shouldn't go there. Herringway was the warehouse district, so in a change from my usual plan, this will be the main storage, but it's a whole section of a city, and it's not at the very, very bottom. It's by the workshops. It's actually quite a ways up. And because the city is wide, I mean, from here to here is over 1 kilometer across, and the warehouse district is almost 1 kilometer across, then yeah, you know, storage drawers networks have a reach of up to, if you set them in the config file, up to 75 blocks in each direction. And 75 blocks is not going to cut it. So there's going to be multiple storage networks. There'll have to be a sorting facility that will initially route stuff to the correct network, and then it'll go into the right warehouse. And again, you know, this isn't about absolute convenience or efficiency. This is about building a living, breathing city. And in a living, breathing city, they wouldn't have just one warehouse with everything in it, right? You know, you would have warehouses for, you know, say, raw materials, so wood and stone type of stuff, right? You'd have a warehouse for furniture. You have a warehouse for maybe consumables like oil and stuff. That's nice. I don't know why I chose this time to do that. Anyway, yeah. So that's how that would work. And that would be on top of Elvedon, which is a level devoted for livestock rearing, right? Strawberry Fields, which is agriculture. Then we start to get back to what I would normally have at the bottom of my base, which is we would have a tube station. In this case, it really is a tube station. Victoria Station, that'd be where that would be our concourses and our platforms all on one level. And then under core, heavy industry, there's 2 levels of this. They're both the same size. And this is where most of the automated heavy automation, really manufacturing and processing materials will occur. So that's the whole plan. Now, this number's probably right. These numbers are all wrong. So this thing is gargantuan, and these can be 0. So that's it in a nutshell from the side. Now, it's not just the planning from the side, because this gives us a good idea, but this is only literally the skeletal structure on which to base, and this is only the vertical aspect of it. The other side would be the horizontal aspect. So in another sheet here, this is Westminster. This is very upper level. I have laid it out. Now, when we've been working on preparing to start, leveling the ground and excavating, I often talk about the central core. And that's it, central core. What is the central core? The central core are going to be banks of elevators and a spiral, well, in this case, staircase. I wouldn't call it a roadway. I'm going to save that elsewhere. But it would be a spiral staircase and banks of elevators for folks to go up and down in. And the central core, if we go back to the overview, runs right through every single level. Right? This is the central core. Now, the next part is called the atrium. And that's this open space. So here we are at Westminster and looking at this layout. And don't forget, each of these squares is a chunk. That's 16 by 16 blocks. So here we are at Westminster. Here's the central core. There'll be an area like a plaza around it for people to move around. Then you have the atrium, which is actually 4 pieces. This is open space. And going back to here, these are the atriums. Open space all the way down. So the whole point here is to bring in air and light from the upper level all the way down to the lowest levels, because, people got to breathe down there too. So this is kind of lost, but this then turns into at each level a series of balconies that people can stand at, look down, and what have you. And then this other space out here is where we will build the buildings, Parliament, stuff like that. Now, since this is Westminster and it's at the very, very top, it's uncovered, right? So that is what we have. Everything here is uncovered, open to the sky. If we take one step down, now we're on Crown Park, and what you can see is this dotted line represents the footprint of the level above. So here on Crown Park, this area out here is open to the sky, and so that would be very traditional park. And then this area within the dotted lines, this is the footprint for Westminster above, so this area is going to be covered. Now, what am I going to do with covered park space? At this point, I don't really know yet. I might put in, artificial lighting and continue the grassy park element, or this might be more devoted to like an urban park, like a plaza type of thing. I don't know, something like that. But that's how it goes. Now, as we start working down our levels, the same thing applies, right? So this covered area is within the dotted lines, but it's bigger because it's covered by Crown Park, and here's the open area. And it goes on and on and on all the way down. Now, one of the things I want to talk about design-wise, which I haven't put in here yet, but, I'm thinking about it, right? Which is, oh, that's the wrong font, by the way. Yeah, that's the right font. That's the wrong font. Anyway, when we talk about the central core having banks of elevators and a spiral staircase, but I also want there will be roads, right, all throughout this space. So we can have vehicles, and in fact, one of the things I want to implement is a spiral road that is out in this outer layer, this layer where either at the layer or just inside the enclosed part, maybe just inside the closed spot. That way it's covered during rain, but that would be a roadway that would spiral up, right? Up and up and up to each level, or spiral down depending on where you're starting from. But and what I want to include on that is, of course, it's a roadway, so you could drive your car on there. But what I really want to do is put a hanging monorail on there, right? We're talking about steampunk era, and monorails, especially hanging monorails, were something that were heavily looked at the time. So were elevated trains and stuff, but I think the hanging monorail is sexier, right? Especially since the area that we're planning, it's 16 by 16 by 16. So 16 blocks up. There's plenty of space to put a hanging monorail, and nobody has to duck when the monorail goes by. So that's what I would like to do. Now, all of this goes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it starts getting smaller and smaller and smaller, like we saw before. Now, all of this is actually in the context of the game world that we've already been working on, right? So if I go to the game map, I threw up these nav points, which I'd set up a long time ago, to help me figure out in game visually what we're dealing with here. So everything we've seen in the game so far is right here, Griffin Manor, which is where I'm standing, and I built it specifically here, just outside the city limit of New Londinium. So when we build New Londinium, you can see it's going to stretch from here to here, and from here down to Griffin Manor. That's one big circle. That's the city. That's what we're talking about. So now you understand just how big this thing really is. And to give you more of an idea, right? Here is the city of Twin Spires, and here is the space for both the central core and the outer corners of the atrium. So, you know, if we go back to this, see this kind of looks small. You're like, yeah, it's not, you know, not that big. Then you look at it here, like, holy smokes, that's big. And yes, it is. That's what we've been planning. But so we're going to excavate this central core so that we'll and put in the elevators and the stairs so that we can go up and down the levels, and then we'll start excavating all of it, probably starting at the atriums and then work our way outward to the rest of the city. And so that's the plan. Now, in the immediate future, starting with the next episode, I think, I mean, that's a lot of material to move. I mean, the thing is, truthfully, now that I've quantified the work and I'm talking to you about it, I see just how crazy big this is. But I always said that this is not, you know, a one and done type of thing. This is a long-term commitment, ongoing commitment. And so with that said, this is something I plan to work on for a very, very long time. And based on the scope of the project, that's how long it'll take. But, you know, retirement's coming soon, so that's, you know, that'll help. But that being said, in the more immediate future, I was getting at, you know, I have a thin walkway. If you here you go, this little trail. You remember early on, I made a trail that will get me from Griffin Manor all the way back to Twin Spires. Well, we're gonna flesh that out. We're gonna make that into a full-blown road, wide enough for a cart, because I'm gonna have to go find a horse and a cart, because I mean, look at all this material. I mean, I've got a pretty heavy duty backpack, but I'm going to be making multiple trips up here to remove material and cart it back to storage, and then start building. So that would be one of the first steps. Along that line, once we get the cart trail in place, we'll start removing this, and that material will have to come back here and get stored. And then we'll start working on New Londinium itself. Plus, you know, the house is still not complete. I mean, it'll probably wind up being cozy, but that's not the goal. The goal's not to get it cozy. The goal is just to get everything put away. You know, we've done that pretty much with the storage. The kitchen still needs some work. We need to set up a proper enchanting space and a proper bedroom at the very least. But I'd like to set up some living rooms and stuff. You know, then yeah, it is kind of cozy, but like to set that up. And that doesn't all have to be up front before we do this. That could be along the way. But and then it's a story of making this happen. Now, at what point will we actually have working homes and shops and stuff? I don't know. Like I said, this is the biggest project I've ever planned and tried to implement. So we're still very much playing this by ears and move along. But that is the plan. And I can go ahead and close this and turn back to this. And just like with the other ones, I need to quantify the number of blocks. When I say block here, I'm talking about a chunk, 16 by 16 by 16. It's going to be phenomenal, right? Because, I mean, Westminster is one of the smallest levels, and it's got 308 chunk blocks. It's going to get astronomical. So I will need to set all that up. And once I get those numbers computed, I'll go ahead and post this out there, just in case you want to use it as a template or to show off your friends just how much of a nerd or geek or potentially dangerous compulsive I am. Just knock yourself out. If you have any questions, of course, I'd love to hear it in the comments. If you have comment feedback, I would certainly love to hear that in the comment. Though, try to keep it constructive. And that's basically it. So I'm really looking forward to this. This turns out that this explanation is a lot easier and quicker than it was from the Rubble. But then again, this is a much higher level plan, literally and figuratively. So there's not as many details to delve into. So, but I hope it gives you an idea what to expect. And hopefully that will keep you coming back. And until next time, I hope this finds you in good health, good spirits, and perhaps a touch of good fortune. Cheers.